You and I both know millions can't buy me a working spine. I had to learn that wealth mostly just attracts predators. Then this desperate single father walked right into my fortress. He didn't look at my wheelchair with pity. That simple respect changed everything. It actually exposed a multi-million-dollar plot against my life. Rain hammered hard against the cracked windshield of Liam Gallagher's beat-up truck. He gripped the steering wheel tight, knuckles white as he stared at his GPS. Beside him, strapped securely into her seat, 7-year-old Chloe slept, hugging a worn-out rabbit. Liam let out a slow, heavy breath. He was a master architectural restorer, a guy who could bring a 100-year-old crumbling estate back to life. But he couldn't fix the massive mountain of medical bills his late wife left behind. 2 brutal years fighting cancer had drained their savings, their house, and almost broke him. Today was supposed to be his lifeline. An emergency contracting gig at my sprawling Mercer Island estate fell right into his lap. I was paying enough to clear his debts and stop the bank from taking his small condo. He only had one massive problem, Mrs. Gable, his trusted older neighbor and babysitter, had slipped on some wet leaves that morning, twisting her ankle. With 0 options and my strict mandate demanding he not be late to the job, Liam had no choice. He had to bring Chloe to my house. Pulling up to my iron gates, Liam rolled down his window and hit the buzzer. The heavy gates parted silently, revealing my winding driveway lined with huge pine trees and perfectly groomed, imposing lawns. My home was a giant modern structure made of glass, steel, and slate. It looked more like a high-tech fortress than a home. "Stay close to me, Bug," Liam whispered gently, unbuckling his little girl as he parked near my grand entrance. "Don't touch anything and get your coloring book out. Daddy needs this job." Chloe rubbed her sleepy eyes and nodded, slipping her tiny hand into his rough palm. They were met at my massive frosted glass front doors by an older, severely dressed woman holding a tablet. That was Beatrice Higgins, my estate manager. Her sharp eyes darted from Liam's bulky tool belt to the kid hiding behind him. "Mr. Gallagher, I presume," Beatrice stated, her voice just dripping with pure disapproval. "I was never informed that you operated a daycare service." Miss Sterling demanded absolute 0 distractions. "She runs a Fortune 500 company from here." "I apologize, ma'am," Liam replied, keeping his voice polite but incredibly firm. "Emergency childcare situation today. She is quiet. She won't be in the way, and my work will speak for itself. I heard the interior accessibility renovations were ruined and needed immediate, quiet fixing." Before Beatrice could kick him out, my wheelchair's low motor hummed across the vast foyer. Picture this with me. I rolled my motorized wheelchair around the massive slate wall. There I was, Victoria Sterling, the 32-year-old billionaire CEO of Sterling Omnicorp. I wore a perfectly tailored silk blouse and dark trousers. My dark hair pulled tightly back into a severe knot. I kept my expression perfectly striking yet totally devoid of warmth, an icy mask. He had likely read about me. That horrific crash 5 years ago left me paralyzed from the waist down, right when I took over my late father's tech and property empire. Since then, I became a notorious recluse, fiercely private and entirely ruthless in corporate deals. I halted my power chair just a few feet away, locking my cold blue eyes firmly onto Liam. I was so used to the reactions. The sudden widening of eyes, the awkward weight shifting, the fake smiles, and that pathetic, sickening pity. I used my physical disability as a filter. I knew exactly what kind of person someone was just by how they eyed my chair. "You are the contractor," I stated flatly. I saw the kid but ignored her completely. "I have a satellite board meeting in 30 minutes. I have no time to coddle you." The last contractor was a fool who couldn't measure a turning radius to save his life. I paused, tilting my chin up defensively as I launched my standard preemptive strike. "Sorry, I am in a wheelchair. If the sight makes you uncomfortable, or if you plan to treat me like fragile glass, just leave right now." Liam never even blinked. He offered no sad smile, no empty platitudes. Instead, he simply dropped to one knee, bringing himself lower. I braced myself for the inevitable condescension, but Liam was not looking at my face. He was staring intensely at my expensive Brazilian hardwood flooring, and that slight incline leading into the formal dining room. He pulled a digital level right off his belt, set it on the floor, and squinted. "I don't care about the chair, Miss Sterling," Liam replied, his voice completely steady. He tapped the wood with his bare knuckles. But I do care about this grating. The guy who poured this subfloor didn't just mess up your required turning radius. He built a 3-degree cross slope right before a sharp marble drop-off. You aren't rolling over an inconvenience, you're rolling over a serious hazard. One wrong pivot, and you're going backward straight into that glass coffee table. I stared at him, completely stunned. Absolutely no one spoke to me like that. Nobody ignored my personal tragedy just to point out flawed architectural physics. And, Liam continued, standing back up and wiping dust off his jeans, the floor transition strips are cheap aluminum. They will warp under the sheer weight of a motorized chair within a month. I will need to rip up about 200 square feet of this to do it right. His daughter peeked out from behind his leg, looking directly at me. Your chair is really shiny, the little girl told me softly. It looks like a spaceship. For a brief fraction of a second, my icy mask slipped. A tiny, almost invisible twitch at the corner of my mouth gave away my amusement. It's custom, I told the girl smoothly, before snapping my gaze back to Liam. Rip up whatever you need to, Mr. Gallagher, just fix the issue. Over the next 4 days, my sprawling glass fortress echoed with the sounds of Liam's meticulous work. He arrived at dawn and left long after sunset, methodically dismantling the disastrous upgrades that the previous firm had installed. True to his word, little Chloe was an absolute ghost. She sat in a designated corner of my massive living room on a heavy canvas dropcloth, surrounded by crayons, quietly coloring while her father worked. I found myself getting completely distracted. Let me show you my world. My office overlooks the main living area. But instead of staring at my company's quarterly earnings reports all morning, my eyes kept drifting down to the rugged contractor and his quiet little girl. I watched Liam work with this quiet, intense dignity. No constant breaks, he never even checked his phone. Best of all, he didn't try to schmooze me when I rolled past. Day 5, those heavy mahogany front doors swung open and Simon Caldwell waltzed right in. Simon is my cousin and the chief operating officer of my own company. Always slick, impeccably dressed in a custom-tailored suit. Radiating that oily charm, he was the golden boy of our public relations. He also hired the previous contractors who messed up. Vicky, darling, he called out, totally ignoring my assistant and marching into the living area. He stopped short. Those Italian leather shoes nearly ruined Liam's clean dropcloth. He looked down his nose at Liam, who was covered in sawdust, measuring a threshold. Who is this, and why is there a child on the floor of a $50 million home? I wheeled out of my office, feeling my jaw instantly tighten up. Liam is fixing the mess your people left behind, Simon, and the child is none of your concern. Simon laughed, a dry, completely humorless sound. My people were top-tier, Victoria. You just have impossible standards. It's a wheelchair, not a hovercraft. There are bounds to what architectural modification can achieve without ruining the aesthetic of the house. He shot Liam a dismissive glare. Try not to scuff the wainscoting, pal. Liam didn't even bother looking up from his tape measure. Hard to scuff it when it's already pulling away from the drywall due to moisture rot, pal. Your top-tier guys didn't seal the exterior vapor barrier. Simon's jaw clamped shut. He shot me this totally forced smile. I just came to drop off the merger documents for you to sign. Take care, Vicky. Be careful with these independent laborers. He tossed a manila folder onto a side table and marched right out. When those heavy doors finally clicked shut, the silence in that room was heavy. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Forgive my cousin. He believes aesthetics trump functionality. Liam stood up, wiping his forehead with his bare arm. He strolled over to the side table, grabbed his water bottle, and took a long drink. He looked straight at me, his brow furrowed in serious thought. Miss Sterling, can I show you something? What is it? I need you to come with me to the East Wing, to the new custom elevator they installed for you. Stick with me here. I steered my wheelchair down the hall, following him. Little Chloe trotted a few paces behind us, clutching her stuffed rabbit. We arrived at the sleek, brushed steel doors of the residential elevator connecting the ground floor to my master suite upstairs. You said your cousin hired the firm that put this in? Liam asked. His voice was missing its usual calm. It had a tight, dangerous edge now. Yes, Sterling Omnicorp uses them for our commercial builds. Simon insisted they handle my private residence. Why? Let's look together. He pushed the button. The doors opened silently. Liam knelt at the threshold, shining his heavy flashlight into the black gap between my custom elevator and the floor. I was testing the power loads for your new ramp sensors. Found a strange reading in the junction box, Liam said, his eyes locking dead onto mine, no pity. So, I dug deeper. The main braking system on your elevator was intentionally bypassed. A cold chill ran straight down my spine. Bypassed? You mean faulty, I asked. I mean disabled, he corrected me, his voice steady. And the backup emergency catch, the one that stops a fall if the cables or hydraulics fail, its tension springs were filed down. If you took this up to the second floor and the main power grid took a surge, the car would plummet. I stared into that black shaft. The brutal reality of his words washed right over me. I thought the crew was just incompetent, Liam muttered. He dropped his voice to a low whisper, keeping it from Chloe. The steep ramp by the glass table, the slick thresholds, the dead elevator brakes. Miss Sterling, these are not careless construction mistakes. Someone did not just botch this. He stood up, towering over the gears, but his eyes held a fierce, respectful urgency. Someone engineered all these flaws on purpose. They wanted to look like a tragic accident. My breath caught hard in my throat. The secure fortress I built to keep the world away had been fully weaponized against me. I thought of Simon pushing his own contractors, his fake pity over my fragile state, and his total desperation to force this upcoming corporate merger through. You are saying, my voice trembled for the very first time since he walked in. I am saying, Liam replied, stepping between me and the open drop, someone wants you dead. And they want your wheelchair to be the perfect excuse. Absolute shock paralyzed me, freezing me in place far worse than my severed spine ever had. I stared into the endless abyss of the elevator shaft, feeling the cold. Stale air from the deep basement brushed against my face. The sprawling business empire my father built, the billions in assets. These bulletproof glass walls around me, none of it offered a single ounce of real protection. My own cousin was quietly plotting my murder, crossing me out like a simple line item on his balance sheet. Liam reached over. His rough, calloused fingers grabbed the heavy steel elevator door, sliding it firmly shut. That heavy metallic click broke the terrifying spell that held me captive. Do you have any proof? I asked, my voice dropping down to a low, dangerous pitch. The ruthless CEO was back, erasing the helpless girl who had just stared death in the face. Liam nodded, pulling a thick, rugged smartphone straight from his belt. I took high-resolution photos and video of those filed tension springs, the bypassed junction box, and that tampered floor grating in the dining room. I even documented the exact serial numbers on those aluminum thresholds. They are not architectural grade, they are cheap residential stock meant to buckle. I can hand all this evidence right to the police. No, I snapped instantly, spinning my chair backward a few inches. Never the police. Simon plays golf with the city commissioner. He donates millions to the local police benevolent fund. If we hand this over to local authorities, the evidence conveniently disappears into a locker, and Simon will immediately know we are on to him. He will just find another way, a faster way. I looked over at Chloe, who was gently petting her stuffed rabbit. You and I know a lethal conspiracy was unfolding feet away. My guarded expression softened, a rare flash of genuine empathy crossing my face. Mr. Gallagher, you need to take your daughter and leave, right now. I will wire your full contract payment into your account immediately, along with a generous bonus for your absolute silence. You have done enough. Liam crossed his arms over his chest, his broad shoulders blocking the hallway. I'm not going anywhere, Miss Sterling. If I walk out that door, you're a sitting duck. Simon already saw me here. He knows I am pulling up the floors. If his contractors realize I found their sabotage, they won't just come after you. They'll come after me to tie up loose ends. I analyzed his face. I saw no panic, no greed, just a hardened, pragmatic resolve. He fixed broken things. Between you and me, my entire life was a fractured foundation, but he offered zero pity. The merger? I murmured, connecting the terrifying dots aloud. Simon brought me the final corporate paperwork today. Sterling Omnicorp is acquiring a massive robotics manufacturer. I have been fighting him on the restructuring terms. If I die before signing the revised bylaws, my shares default to the executive board's trust. Simon is the board chairman. He would take total control of a $70 billion entity. Motive, Liam said grimly. Now we just need the trap. I pressed a button on my wheelchair's armrest, summoning Beatrice. My stern estate manager appeared. Moments later, her tablet clutched tightly to her chest. Beatrice, I commanded, my firm tone brooking zero argument. Take Chloe straight to the East Wing guest suite, lock the reinforced doors. Turn on her favorite cartoons and order whatever she wants from the kitchen. Do not leave her side until I tell you it is safe. Beatrice blinked, her sharp eyes darting quickly between me and Liam. She never asked questions. As we both know, fierce loyalty to my family dictated her actions. She extended a gentle hand to the little girl. Come along, Chloe. We have a private screening room with unlimited popcorn. Chloe looked up at her father. Liam knelt, kissing her forehead. Go with Beatrice, Bug. Daddy has to finish working on the spaceship. Once the massive hallway was clear, Liam turned back to me. What is the play, boss? We make Simon think he won, I said, a cold, calculating fire burning in my eyes. But to do that, we need to force him to bring his saboteur back into my house. I need a video confession, and I need him cornered where his vast money cannot buy an exit. Liam stroked his jaw, his steady eyes scanning the ceiling panels. The house's internal security system. Can Simon access it? Yes. He oversaw the installation. He likely has a backdoor feed to the cameras. Then I need to blind him, Liam said, turning back to the elevator. I will create a localized loop on the security footage for this hallway and the living room. It'll show an empty house. Then I am going to rewire this elevator. I'll reconnect those brakes but add a dummy relay, Liam said. Then you call Simon. Tell him the elevator is making this awful grinding sound. He'll panic, thinking his little trap is failing before his alibi is perfectly set. He'll bring his guy back to fix it. I nodded, a grim smile on my face. And when they step inside to check their handiwork, I asked. I trapped them in the box, Liam said, his tone turning cold. Then we stream every single word to your corporate lawyers and the FBI Cyber Division. Heavy rain lashed against my towering glass windows, matching the furious storm brewing inside me. It was 9 p.m. The study was bathed in low lighting. Deep shadows stretched long and menacing across my pristine hardwood floors. I sat in my study, phone on speaker, forcing my hands to rest calmly in my lap. Simon, sorry to call so late. The new elevator, it's shuddering violently. It stalled between floors for 10 minutes before dropping me back to the ground level. I just don't feel safe. Through the speaker, Simon's voice dripped with completely manufactured concern. Vicky, my God, are you all right? I warned you those hydraulic systems could be temperamental. Stay exactly where you are. I'm calling Arthur right now. He's our lead engineer. We're coming over to look at it personally. Thank you, Simon, I replied. The front gates will be open. I ended the call and glanced over my shoulder. Liam hid in the study's dark alcove, a laptop glowing faintly on his knees. He had already hijacked my estate's localized network. On Simon's phone, the security feed just showed a quiet, empty foyer. In reality, Liam had rigged 3 hidden cameras in the vents right above my elevator landing. They took the bait, I whispered softly. 20 minutes, Liam replied, his fingers flying rapidly across the keyboard. I've fully overwritten the elevator's master control board. Once they step inside, the doors lock on a manual override that only I can control. The ventilation stays on, but they'll be trapped in a steel cage. The minutes crawled by with an agonizing slowness. Every single creak of the settling house sounded like a gunshot. I realized I wasn't just relying on some hired corporate contractor anymore. I was trusting this stranger with my life. He hadn't even flinched. No pitying looks, no demands for more money. He saw a broken foundation and respected me enough to brace it. Suddenly, headlights swept across the frosted glass of my front entrance. Heavy footsteps echoed in the foyer. Vicky, Simon called out, his voice bouncing off the slate. I'm in the study, Simon, I called back, faking that helpless vulnerability he always expected from me. I pushed my wheelchair out into the main living area, stopping right near the edge of the newly repaired flooring. Simon emerged, followed closely by a hulking man in a heavy canvas jacket hauling a massive reinforced tool bag. Arthur, the hired hitman, hiding right behind a hard hat. This is completely unacceptable, Simon declared loudly, shaking his head. Arthur is going to run a full diagnostic. He looked around, his cold eyes narrowing. Where is that dusty little contractor you had lingering around here? I sent him home, I lied smoothly. His kid was giving me a massive migraine. Simon smirked, relaxing. Good, let the real professionals handle this. I watched Simon wave Arthur straight toward my private elevator doors. Arthur hit the call button. The heavy brushed steel doors slid open. The cabin lights flickered. A little theatrical trick my contractor, Liam, added. Get in, Arthur. Let's see what the hell is wrong with the sensor, Simon snapped. Arthur stepped inside the car, dropping his heavy tool bag. Always the calculating type, Simon couldn't help himself. He stepped in right behind him to make sure his customized murder weapon was still ready for me. Hiding just out of sight, Liam finally hit enter on his laptop. Bang! Those heavy steel doors slammed together with a deafening, violent crash. The massive metallic echo actually rattled my living room windows. Trapped inside, Simon flinched hard. What the Arthur? Open the door. Arthur hammered the open button. Absolutely nothing. He punched his fist hard against the panel. Then the main lights snapped off. Only a faint red emergency glow washed over their panicking faces. I wheeled myself to those doors, heart pounding, but I wore pure authority. Real strength demands respect, not pity. I pressed a simple little button on the remote Liam gave me. It turned on the two-way intercom wired straight inside. Is there a problem, Simon? My voice cut perfectly into the trapped car. Vicky, the door's jammed. Tell your security detail to grab pry bars. He yelled, real panic finally cracking his slick, calculated mask. I can't do that, Simon, I replied, dropping all of my pretense. Because my contractor never went home. He spent the last 6 hours documenting Arthur bypassing the main brakes and filing down my emergency tension springs. Total dead silence hit the intercom. Inside that steel box, the heavy truth finally crushed those two men. Simon lunged for the speaker. Victoria, you're just paranoid. It's malfunctioning. You're crazy. I'm a lot of things, Simon, I answered coldly. I am paralyzed. I'm ruthless. I am streaming this live to the Seattle FBI and my executive board. Pity me all you want, but I am not crazy. You have nothing, Simon screamed, hammering his fists against the reinforced steel. It's just a construction error. You can't prove intent. Actually, Liam's steady voice suddenly crackled over the intercom. He stepped right out of the shadows, standing firmly beside my wheelchair. I can because the serial numbers on those cheap aluminum strips you used to build a trap for my wheelchair perfectly match the purchase orders Arthur made using a fake dummy corporation. A shell company entirely funded by your own offshore accounts. In that dark cabin, Arthur turned on Simon with a low, furious growl. You swore we could just pity her, said the contractor was a nobody. Shut up, Arthur, Simon hissed, his arrogance replaced by absolute panic. Victoria, please listen to me. We can make a deal. The merger is dead, I interrupted. That single sentence executed his corporate career and his entire freedom. And so is your time at Sterling Omnicorp. The police are already rolling through my front gates. Those elevator doors will finally unlock when they put you in handcuffs. Outside my window, the red and blue flashing police lights finally pierced the heavy rain, casting a chaotic, triumphant glow across my entire glass fortress. I watched detectives swarm my grand foyer, their heavy boots tracking Seattle mud across my pristine slate tiles. The storm outside raged on, but inside my high-tech glass fortress, a completely different kind of tempest had finally broken. Handcuffs clicked sharply over Simon's expensive tailored suit cuffs. He was no longer my suave chief operating officer. Just a cornered, desperate man, face flushed red with rage as two officers hauled him from my private elevator. Arthur, his hired muscle, went quietly, keeping his eyes firmly fixed on the floor. You think this changes anything, Victoria? Simon spat, twisting against the officers' heavy grips as they dragged him toward my frosted doors. The board already pities you. The moment this hits the press, Sterling Omnicorp stock will completely plummet. You lack the stamina for a proxy war from a permobile F5 wheelchair. Vanguard and BlackRock will rip the company out from under you by tomorrow morning. I watched him go, my expression completely unreadable. I didn't offer a dramatic parting line. I simply let the heavy mahogany doors swing shut, completely cutting off his frantic shouting. The sudden silence in my vast living room felt heavy, broken only by the rhythmic drumming of the rain against the skylights. Liam stood near the center island of my big kitchen, quietly packing his diagnostic tools back into his battered leather work bag. He gave pure respect, zero pity. You see, he treated the massive takedown of a billionaire executive like leveling a basic subfloor. "Mr. Gallagher," I called out, my voice slightly hoarse from the massive adrenaline crash. Liam looked up, zipping his heavy bag closed. "Police said they'll need a formal statement from me tomorrow. I gave them the hard drive with the security loop and all your structural engineering photos." I wheeled myself right toward him, my custom power chair gliding smoothly over the section of flooring he had already fixed. I stopped inches from him. "You saved my life tonight. The wire transfer for your contract, plus the bonus I promised, already cleared your account. It's enough to pay off your medical debts, secure your condo, and put Chloe through college. You are free to go." Liam pulled his phone from his pocket, glanced at the banking notification that silently popped up, and just sighed. He didn't look thrilled. He looked genuinely burdened. "I appreciate the generous compensation, Miss Sterling. It changes my life, but I'm not leaving." I just raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Excuse me, I signed a contract to fix the accessibility hazards in your primary residence," Liam stated flatly, pointing toward the torn-up section of my dining room floor. "I'm a real craftsman. I don't leave jobs half-finished, especially when my client has to navigate around exposed floor joists. Give me a pot of black coffee. I'm finishing the dining room grating tonight." Before I could even argue, Beatrice descended the grand staircase holding little Chloe's hand. The little girl was rubbing her tired eyes, tightly clutching her stuffed rabbit, completely oblivious to the corporate felony arrests that had just occurred. "Daddy?" Chloe mumbled, walking straight over to Liam and hugging his strong leg. The movie finished. Liam crouched down, gently smoothing her messy hair. "I know, bug. Daddy has to work late just for tonight. Can you sleep in the fancy guest room with Beatrice?" The kid studied me for a second, then nodded at him. "Okay, good night, spaceship lady." My chest tightened in a way I wasn't used to. "Good night, Chloe." Beatrice led her upstairs and I finally turned to Liam. He was already hauling fresh Brazilian hardwood planks right out of his truck. I watched him for an hour. No pitying glances, just the steady focus of a man building something meant to last. But Simon's parting threat kept eating away at me. "Vanguard and BlackRock will rip the company out from under you." I grabbed my tablet from its chair mount and hacked the secure executive server. My blood froze. The guy wasn't just planning a hit. He had rigged a massive corporate deadman switch. Listen to this. Buried deep inside the upcoming robotics merger was a hidden clause. If our board chairman was ever incapacitated or forced out, it triggered a vote of no confidence against me, weaponizing my disability as a weakness. The board meeting wasn't canceled. It was bumped up, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. "He rigged the boardroom too," I whispered to myself. Liam stopped measuring a cut on his saw and looked up. "Problem?" he asked. "Simon's final trap," I said, voice shaking. "He set up an emergency vote. The board of directors is just his puppets. They'll use his arrest and fake pity for my wheelchair to steal my voting rights at dawn. If I don't get to headquarters and prove I am in absolute, undeniable control, they will completely dismantle my father's legacy." Liam put his pencil down. He didn't flinch, then show up and prove them wrong. "My custom accessible van is in the shop," I admitted, the bitter frustration finally bleeding into my own voice. "Simon arranged that yesterday, said it needed a total engine overhaul. I'm basically trapped here until security finds another wheelchair-accessible armored car. Which definitely won't happen by 8 a.m. Liam just stared at his muddy 10-year-old Ford F-150 in the driveway. He looked back at me, no pity, just a spark of dangerous, defiant humor. "Mr. Sterling," Liam said, casually brushing sawdust off his jeans. "How do you feel about riding shotgun in a beat-up pickup truck?" Dawn broke over Seattle, throwing a harsh, pale light across the massive city skyline. Down at Sterling Omnicorp headquarters, our 70-story monument of glass and steel, you can imagine the boardroom. The air was thick with greedy, calculated anticipation. 12 corporate sharks sat around that massive mahogany table. At the head of it all, my empty chair sat waiting. It was 7:55 a.m. "It's a tragic situation," Richard Vance, Simon's closest crony, announced with totally fake, patronizing sorrow. "But we must protect our shareholders. Victoria's condition has clearly made her a helpless target. And after the trauma of last night's home invasion, She is medically and psychologically unfit to lead this corporate merger. We will vote to place the company in a blind trust under my direction. I wouldn't count my shares just yet, Richard. The massive double doors to the boardroom swung wide open. I rolled right in, spine straight as an arrow, dressed in a sharp slate gray Armani power suit. I wore my usual terrifying mask of ice, but those corporate executives weren't just staring at me. They were staring at the man walking right behind me. Liam Gallagher looked completely out of place in this high-finance corporate world. He wore clean dark jeans, scuffed work boots, and a heavy canvas jacket. Yet he moved with the quiet, heavy authority of a guy who owned the very floor he walked on. He shoved the doors shut with a loud thud, crossed his arms, and leaned right against the wall. His gaze scanned those executives like he was inspecting a cheap termite infestation. "Victoria," Richard stammered, quickly standing up. "We heard your accessible transport was down." "I found another ride," I replied smoothly, pulling my wheelchair right to the head of the table. "And a new head of security and infrastructure design, Mr. Gallagher here has a brilliant eye for finding rot deep in the foundation." I tossed a heavy manila envelope right into the middle of the mahogany table. "That," I announced, my voice ringing with total, unyielding authority, "is the complete police report and the FBI Cyber Division's early findings, plus a paper trail tying Simon Caldwell's offshore bank accounts to the sabotage at my home. And there is a sworn affidavit proving that 2 members of this board, Richard, I'm looking right at you. You set up the dummy corporation to buy the materials." All the color drained from Richard's face. The rest of the board started whispering frantically. "Your little vote of no confidence is cancelled," I continued, leaning forward, "because anyone voting for it becomes a named co-conspirator in an attempted assassination plot. Instead, we are voting to immediately terminate Richard and his scheming little allies, and to restructure the entire robotics merger under my sole control." I stared around the room, my blue eyes daring a single person to pity or challenge me. I may sit in a wheelchair, but my mind works just fine. And my company will absolutely no longer tolerate parasites. All in favor? Their hands shot up so fast, the very air in the boardroom seemed to shift. I allowed myself a tiny, genuinely triumphant smile. I glanced back at Liam. He gave me a slow, deeply respectful nod. By noon, my bloodless corporate coup was complete. The traitors got fired, shares stabilized, and my absolute control over Sterling Omnicorp was locked in stone. Later that day, the rain cleared out, leaving a brilliant, sun-drenched Seattle afternoon behind. I sat out on the massive back patio of my estate, sipping some fancy artisanal tea. The heavy glass sliding doors opened with a totally effortless glide, all thanks to the custom tracks Liam installed before dawn. Liam strolled out onto the patio, holding a simple clipboard. Chloe skipped happily right beside him, gripping a fresh, highly detailed architectural sketchpad. "The interior transitions are fully flushed," Liam reported, tapping a pen on his clipboard. "No more 3-degree slopes. You could roll a marble from the foyer into the kitchen, and it wouldn't deviate an inch." "Job is done, boss." I gently set my teacup down. I studied the man who finally shattered my protective glass walls. Not with pity, but with simple, unyielding decency and respect. He looked right past my money, my wheelchair, and my icy armor. He treated me like an equal, choosing to fix things instead of exploiting my situation. "Your contract for this house is finished, Mr. Gallagher," I said softly. "But Sterling Omnicorp owns over 200 commercial properties globally. My accessibility designs are frankly archaic. I need an executive director of accessible architecture. Someone who respects me enough to rip up floorboards and tell me when I am wrong." Liam paused, a slow, genuine smile spread across his face. He glanced down at Chloe, who was busy drawing a shiny spaceship on paper. "The pay better be good. I have a kid to put through college." "The pay is exorbitant," I replied, feeling a genuine warm smile finally reach my eyes. "And childcare is provided on site." For the first time in 5 years, I was not just surviving inside a fortress. I was finally building a home. Did my boardroom takedown leave you speechless? Or did Liam's quick thinking and demand for respect steal the show? I would love to hear your favorite twists in the comments below. If you and I connected over this intense story of resilience and demanding respect, please hit that like button and share this video with your friends. and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling, real-life inspired audio dramas every week.